Hi, I'm Mr. Wahlberg, and I'm glad you're here. This video has several chapters to it, and you can watch the whole thing at once, or you can skip to the parts that are relevant to you. Also, there's a few last notes at the end that might be helpful for everyone. This is my 12th year teaching at St. James Academy. I don't have a typical path to becoming a teacher. When I was 18 years old and graduated high school, I didn't really want to study education. To be honest, I didn't really like school, and I couldn't imagine being in school for the rest of my life. Teenage know-it-alls. I studied political science with the hopes one day to run a presidential campaign. I didn't want to be a president. That's a job for suckers, but I wanted to find a candidate in whom I believed and help him or her win office. After volunteering on several campaigns and working around politics for a while, I learned that I didn't actually like politicians all that much, and I didn't want to do that for my life's work. So I did other things instead. I worked on and off for the family plumbing company, a job I tried to quit for 20 years. I worked in commercial construction for a subcontractor, and a little around residential service. Later, I worked in commercial banking, shuffling papers on the second floor of a middle-sized local bank. I did some time in the hospitality business and nationally ranked white tablecloth restaurants and in seedy hotels waiting for a wrecking ball. A brief stint as a telemarketer in an era when people actually answered their phone calls. Remember phone calls? I spent a couple of years working for the Johnson County government as a residential tax appraiser, and I'm sorry for that. Please accept my apology. A short stint as a finish carpenter in a cabinet shop, a little bit of moving cars for an auto broker, sometimes stacking cans in a grocery store, glazing pork products in a honey-baked ham knockoff, and a little bit of tech support in a college campus office that also copied digital cassette tapes, magnetic cassette tapes for people trying to speak Spanish. But none of those were exactly right. None of them were the work that God had created me to do. So, as a young adult, married and hoping to start a family one day, I turned to the last act, to the last refuge of a desperate man. I prayed for an answer. I remember asking God to show me what I could do to glorify Him and how I could build up His kingdom while also building a future for the family that I'd hoped to have one day. And when I started approaching my career as a matter of discernment, as instead of just finding another job, He told me that I should pursue teaching. Oh, my poor wife. Mrs. Wahlberg had already watched me stumble through a couple of dozen jobs, and it probably honestly looked like I was a sinking ship. But when I told her that I needed yet another career change, and this one would require me to go back to school and, incur some new student loan debt and have a period of time where I'd be student teaching and earn no money, despite the fact that we had a new mortgage on an aging house, and I told her that I had to do it because Jesus told me that He wanted me to be a teacher and actually earn less money than I made frying chicken at Hy-Vee. I guess life is full of miracles because that's also what my wife told me to do. And here I am in this classroom and on your screen. Thank God for it. Now, don't worry, I'm qualified to be a teacher. After getting my undergraduate degree in political science from the University of Kansas, I also have a Master of Arts in Education for Teaching and Learning from Avila University. Avila is a vaguely Catholic college on the south side of the city. I have 4 licenses in Kansas and 1 in Missouri in history and government, in speech and theater, in business education, and in technology education. And with those licenses, I teach advanced placement United States history, introduction to rhetoric, debate, and forensics. At St. James, I'm also a mentor in the community of Mother Teresa. Some families may remember me in a different role. I was asked to start the community of Mother Teresa in the fall of 2018 and served as its first dean for its first 3 years. It was an honor. But I missed really the relationships of house, and I wanted to get back to the work that I really enjoyed. So I stepped down as dean to go back into a house, and I'm glad to be back. That same year, in 2018, I helped take around 50 student pilgrims to the Eternal City on our biennial Rome pilgrimage. COVID canceled the 2020 pilgrimage and like everything else, but we're planning on going again this year, assuming the United States State Department will let us out of the country and assuming that the country of Italy will let us into their country. I'm excited to take our students to the holy sites of Chrysostom back in Rome and in Assisi, where I give tours of the Colosseum and walking tours of the churches, streets, and relics of the city. The pilgrimage is open to junior and senior students. Sign-ups are organized through the campus ministry office. I highly recommend it for any eligible students. In 2020, I was asked to bring new leadership to the Thunder Broadcasting Network, expanding St. James Academy's live streaming programming in a time when people were not able to attend events. We're like a little ESPN, mostly featuring Thunder athletics, but also some performing arts pieces and some community competitions and some campus ministry events. It was a lot more time consuming than I expected, but I've had a lot of fun with TBN. And by the way, we're hoping to expand our team. So if you think your student would be a good fit with our production or on-air team, please point them my way. We're always looking for students from all grades to join our camera crew or our audio, video, technical crew, and of course, play-by-play and color commentators for our broadcast. No experience is needed. We'll teach everybody each role, and we're always looking for new members. Now, at the beginning of 2021, I was also awarded an inaugural fellowship with the Duke and Altum Schools Collaborative to go advance the mission of Catholic education. After completing a small project with my co-workers on speeches of Christian witness, I'll be presenting at their national summit this fall in Nashville, Tennessee. This school year, I was also asked to take on to be the third head coach of the St. James Academy Debate and Forensics programs. I'd briefly served as an assistant under the previous coach, and I'm really excited to get back into the game. Besides teaching and coaching and directing and chaperoning and all the other hats that a teacher wears, my wife and I are also business owners, having opened Kansas Tees in 2007. We're a contract printer making custom shirt orders from 1 to 1,000 items. We don't do all the apparel at St. James Academy, but there's a pretty good chance that if you've got a few SJA t-shirts at home, at least a couple of them came out of my basement. We've served customers as far away as Philadelphia and Honolulu, printing shirts for everything from family reunions and theme park trips all the way up to corporate orders for some famous names and some major companies. My wife is the brains of the operation, but I get pretty much all the free t-shirts I'd ever want. On a personal note, I'm a member of St. Joseph's Parish in Shawnee. It's the best parish in the Archdiocese. It's the church I was baptized in, and both of my children were baptized in the same baptismal font that I was. My family's active in the parish. Both my wife and I are in small groups for moms and dads, and I serve as a lector on Sunday Masses. This is my wife, Erin. She's an artist and designer for a local software firm. She works behind a long desk with 4 computer monitors like she's a villain in an evil lair, but mostly she reads website code over and over. Here in a few weeks, we're going to celebrate our 15-year wedding anniversary, and it's been the best 15 years of her life. This is our daughter, Leah. She's about to turn 11 years old. Leah is an avid reader. She loves creating art, playing tabletop games, eating chocolate, and fighting with her brother. This is our son, Jack. He's 8.5. And he's for sale. Jack likes football, basketball, and baseball. He says he wants to be a plumber when he grows up, but it's unclear to me if it's because he's inspired by his hard-working grandfather or if he thinks it's his best shot to marry a princess. We also have a dog, a quarantine pup, a Welsh Terrier named Charlie. We don't claim him as family, though, because we actually own him as property and because he poops in the yard, and we are not that kind of family. This summer, Erin and I went on a road trip like the rest of America. We took the kids to Yellowstone on what turned out to be an epic 2-week journey across 7 states and 4,000 miles, roughly 1/6 of the way around the circumference of the Earth. It was great, and they're memories for a lifetime. I'm Mr. Wahlberg, and I'm the house mentor.
I'm Abby Maurer, and I'm the house captain.
And this is the House!
After 3 years of starting the community of Mother Teresa and serving as its dean, I'm excited to leave the dean's room and be back in a house. Being a dean was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to have worked with a great student team to bring the community the first of what I'm sure will be many Thunder Cups. But I think that being a house mentor is actually a lot more fun, and I'm excited to be back in a role that I love. If you're new to St. James Academy, let me give you a quick primer on house and community system. Our house is something like a homeroom. It's the place where we pass out forms, and it's the organizational structure for students and staff. Each house is part of a community named for a patron saint. We're in the community of Mother Teresa, with 8 communities making up the St. James Academy community system. This is a non-academic time. Sometimes we struggle to get kids to stop doing math or reading their English novel. where we can just be children of God in a community of people being people. There are no grades. I don't check the GPAs of my house members. There are chances for students to be leaders at every level, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, with everybody sharing in the role of running the school and being formed as disciples of Jesus Christ. On a day in, day out level, our houses operate pretty much in a pray together, play together format. We gather in fellowship for food parties or around kickball diamonds for something that sometimes looks a lot like recess. And I'm 100% serious when I say that is exactly the point. You see, I'm convinced that because God exists as three persons in the Holy Trinity, his nature is love that shows up in relationship. And when we make good and holy relationships with our friends, then we can come to know something of the nature of God. So it's absolutely playtime and pray time, but it's absolutely playtime with silly games and shark suits and inside jokes. And I hope all of it will be a holy recreation, a recreation in his image. And it's an honor to be part of this community. Now, there's a few times when I'm going to ask our families in this house to help out in our mission as a school and support some of our house activities. We might need your help with some light construction or decorating our corner of the school during homecoming festivities. That's usually quite a process, and many hands make light work. We also might need you to help contribute to a fund drive during vocation season in support of the seminarians and religious vocations in our archdiocese, or to raise food and funds to help the neediest of our city during our annual construction event benefiting Catholic Charities Food Pantry. These are part of the million different ways that our house lives out our mission of our school to go pass on the Catholic faith to the next generation, and I'm excited to see where we go next. Advanced Placement United States History, often abbreviated APUSH, AP-USA, Advanced Placement United States History, AP-USA, APUSH. Often abbreviated APUSH is a survey course that studies American history from the years 1491 to the present. Although, honestly, I don't shoot for like today. I usually shoot for about September 11th and those tender days of the new millennium. The Advanced Placement is a program of the College Board, the same organization that runs the SAT and the PSAT and the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, as well as the CLEP, the College Level Exam Program. For this class, we use a college-level curriculum to teach American history, including the principles of historical inquiry and writing. In May, our students will take a high-stakes exam to prove college equivalency. Grades from that test are aggregated into a score of 1 to 5, and students earning a score of 3, 4, and 5 have qualified to be exempt from college credit hours while still at high school. We can keep those college tuition bills low. But of course, these students aren't college students, they're high school students, to which I think raises a real question of why do I teach a college class to high school students? And that question I have three answers. The first is the most important one. I teach this class to glorify God. I teach with hopes that not only do my students all get 5s on the AP exam, and they probably will, but that I can add my voice to the chorus of praise to our Lord. Now, I'm really serious about this goal, and I hope my work is in service to God, the God that I love. Secondly, I hope that in teaching United States history, I can give students a sense of their role in the story of humanity. I'm convinced that history is the story of God calling man back to him. And when students study history, they gain a greater sense of their role in God's unfolding plan and in their hope for salvation. U.S. history isn't just the story of great and small people, of good and flawed people that have gone before us. It's also my story and our students' stories, and it's mostly God's story, and thanks to him for it. Lastly, I teach this class because Dr. Rapp gives me huge fat paychecks. I wish. Lastly, there's one more thing I want to say about the APUSH class, and it's about our workload in here. Honestly, there's a lot of reading. The quizzes and the tests are pretty hard. Trust me, I'm aware. And pretty often, students will reach a point. It'll happen later this fall, probably sometime mid-September to mid-October, that it might just seem like too much for your student. He or she might feel overwhelmed by school and the workload of reading and feel like he or she's in over his or her head. And I want to tell you, that's totally normal, and it's part of the process. APUSH is a lot of work, but it's also worth it when the pieces are just starting to fall into place. And I promise that the work is worth it, even when they feel like they're drowning. I promise I won't let your students drown. But the struggle is part of the process, and I will let them swim pretty hard for the shore. Nationwide, most years, AP US History, like the pass rate nationwide is about 50%. About half the students who sit for the exam will pass it. At SJA, we're averaging about 150% of that pass rate. And those scores are all the sweeter for knowing how hard they've worked for it. This is a good class. I enjoy teaching it, and I think we're going to do great things this year. Introduction to Rhetoric is an introduction to the study and practice of persuasion, including the history and theory of rhetoric, the structures and strategy of arguments, and the analysis of texts and artifacts. Students analyze, prepare, and participate in a variety of types of rhetorical discourse. But, of course, you know that because it's printed at the top of our syllabus and you've all signed the back that you've read it. This is a new class at St. James Academy. It's the successor to the old speech class that I taught in 2017 and 2018. While Intro to Rhetoric has a performance component to it, where students will write and deliver a speech in front of their peers, the course has a greater emphasis on how rhetoric works in persuasion. We'll study great and not so great examples of rhetoric in a variety of forms, speeches and print and images and more, as we analyze various approaches to getting one's point across. My homework goal for this class is to assign as little take-home work as possible. There might be some work from time to time, but I hope to use our time in class as well as possible so that your children don't bring rhetoric class home to them any more than necessary. So if you feel like your student doesn't have enough academic work after school, then I have to be honest and tell you that I'm part of the problem, but at least in this class. But if you think your kid is overloaded, I'm your man. This year I was asked to be the head coach of the St. James Academy Debate and Forensics programs. I'm very excited about this. Debate and Forensics were my games in high school, and I happily remember the joy of putting my photo in a Kansas-shaped trophy still displayed at my alma mater. For families new to this program, I'd like to give you a little introduction to the courses. Both Debate and Forensics are co-curricular programs that happen, there's a academic component inside the classroom. It's co-curricular, but there's also a competition component that happens outside the classroom with tournaments on Fridays and Saturdays during the season. I like to describe Debate and Forensics as being games somewhat akin to like cross-country versus track and field. Debate, like cross-country, takes place in the fall. It focuses on a single event, policy debate, and we study the same topic for the entire season. Like cross-country runners basically only run 5Ks, our debaters will learn to research, argue, and defend plans to affirm or negate a resolution. They'll learn both sides of the topic and argue both positions at every tournament. I'll be reaching out to you soon, by the way, asking for commitments to help us judge at our debate tournament that we're hosting on October 2nd. If you're a veteran judge or a total newbie, we've got a place for you. But I'm hoping that you're going to love this game as much as I do, even beyond what the course requirements are. Now, don't worry, rookies. We're going to provide some training for everybody, and basically every tournament judge feels sometimes unqualified for their job. It's the debater's job to meet you where you're at. Our returning families might like to know that there will be a few changes to our program this year, including a new method of earning varsity letters, open even to freshmen. Also a renewed focus on formal argumentation and a new offense and defensive strategy that will unfold over the next few weeks for our players. In a lot of ways, I'm a pretty traditional coach, having learned this game in an era before the internet. In other ways, I'm re-entering the game as new styles of argumentation have changed the landscape in some pretty exciting ways. It's going to be a lot of work for all of us, but I think it's also going to be a lot of fun. If debate is like cross-country, then forensics is more like track and field for performances. In track, there are runners and jumpers and throwers. And some competitors do several events. They cross over between running and throwing, for instance. In forensics, there are speakers, actors, and debaters, and people frequently cross over into different genres. When I was in school, I was mostly a forensics debater and speaker, but I also have medals in prose and a little experience in some acting and interpretation events, and that's pretty typical for how people play this game. In the last several years, St. James Academy has had some top-performing actors, even winning some national rankings in our league. I hope that tradition continues. I also hope to develop the rest of our events to take a good program to the next level. And to that end, we'd like to add some more players to our forensics program. SJ Forensics fulfills a performing arts credit on your student's schedule. It's a nice way for policy debaters to grow in a different season, and it gives students a whole new set of experience in front of small and large audiences, and it's also just a lot of fun. Help us to fill out our forensics team. Lastly, there's a few things that I want to close out with. First, please feel free to reach out to me for any reason. I'd like to hear from you for academic things, for comments about class, for prayer requests, for good stories, and I don't know, funny jokes. If we bump into each other at the halls or at a sporting event, please say hello, and please forgive me if I don't put a face, and a name and a face together right away. I'm getting flaky. My students and my wife would agree with this, but I promise it's good to see you. But also, if you tell me something that you would like me to remember, you really should email me about it. Telling me is nice, but I'm pretty much guaranteed to forget it. Email, on the other hand, will haunt me until the end. If you email after school or on the weekend, my reply might wait until I'm back into school, because when I'm at home, I try to do my best to go take care of my first vocation as a husband and a father. I promise I will reply to you, though. Lastly, this is going to be a great year. There's so much pent-up excitement at St. James and, America, right? And I'm really convinced that the Holy Spirit is ready to blow the doors off this school the moment we cooperate with Him. Thanks for being part of it. Please pray for me, and the rest of the teachers at St. James Academy will be praying for you. God bless you. Go Thunder.